today. Not going to spend the whole 2 hours, so you guys can have some time to work on your assignments, because really from here on out, the rest of the class is going to be you guys like working on your map and your final product for what you want to design in the next upcoming months. So you may have noticed, may have not already, this morning I added another experiment slash assignment to FSO. Anyone online that may be taking this course, they had to do a flow chart previously, and this was actually a weighted assignment. So this is going to be an experiment that I want you guys to just mess around with and have fun with, really get a lot of different ideas down for your flow chart before you get down to your actual map. So the biggest difference between the flow chart and the map, did anybody have any guesses before I even talk about it? When I say just the word flow chart from your previous experience in GD1, you guys did a lot of flow charting. What do you think the difference is between the flow chart and the map? What would be the two key differences?
The flow chart is pure objectives in a line rather than on a
Yep.
2D.
Yep. So it's pure objectives. That's a good word to use. Anyone else want to contribute anything else to that? What you think might be included in the flow chart? Or what about, does anyone know why we'd want to do a flow chart before we do the map?
So you know, like the order of steps you're going to do before you actually like try and visualize.
Exactly, right? So that's a really good way to say it. To, I have an online student answer, to set the order of progression. Yep, that's definitely it, right? To getting the pacing of your mechanics. So in the flow chart, that's what we care about. We just care about how is one mechanic building on each other. In your LDD, you broke down the 3 examples, hopefully an IPM level of 3 different ranging difficulties of a mechanic. So now in our flow chart, we can mess around with where those are actually going to take place. So the thing to get across with the map, the reason that it's the final thing you want to do, and I see it all the time, it's the fun part. That's what you want to be spending your time on, is the map. It's just a visual representation of all of this, of your LDD, of your setups, of your plan, of your flow chart. It's just a visual representation of how they're connected and how they are arranged. But what's nice with the flow chart is you're able to prototype and come up with a lot of different variations of that very quickly. So you guys can read through this assignment. Like I said, this is just going to be an experiment for you guys to work on. I promise you that if you do this and you actually take the time to, even just an hour or 2 hours to mess around with this, you're going to have a lot stronger idea of what you want to do in your map, and it's going to in turn make your product even better. So I'm not just making you guys do busy work. This is actually something that will help you out. Chris?
Will there be a whole lot of reiteration of the same sentence 20 times?
No, but the thing is, so when you're doing your notes, so the question was, is there going to be a lot of reiteration of writing over and over again? There will be a little bit of that between the flow chart and the map. So when you get you're going to be doing your notes for your flow chart. If you were to do it verbatim to this assignment, you'd be doing your notes, and that way when you get to your map, it's a lot of just copy and paste your notes over. But it's just about getting your ideas down and getting the flow in place. Let me go ahead and pull up an example. This is one I actually worked on with another instructor. So the idea of my level was, my player's goal was to find this vehicle that needed to be stolen and returned to the BAST. That was my overall player goal. So let's see if you guys can get a good. I did. That was actually one of my coworkers that he was totally joking around. I'm like, all right, we're keeping it. It's good. We're good. We're keeping it.
So when we were doing the level design document, were we supposed to like think of it as if it was like the entire level from start to finish, or just like one area of the level?
No, when you're doing your level design document, you're doing an area. So an area that will eventually become an entire level amongst your peers. So you're going to be with a team where you're making a whole level, but your level design document is what you're going to build, what you're designing, okay. Which should be in that 2 to 4 minute range. So for my level here, I came up with the concept of I need to find this vehicle, and then I tried to come up with a lot of different setups for things that the player needed to do to make this vehicle the featured asset, right? So I explained here in my notes how it has a missing tire. It needs to be found and replaced. Also, the battery, it needs to be inserted. Also, once the player is able to drive out of it, that switches to that first-person view, and they can crash through a window with a cutscene. It's all camera controlled by a cutscene. So throughout each one of these areas, what I did was I'm starting to just break down what the mechanics are, what the setups are. You can notice in here too, I have these little brackets for I, and here's P. So introducing and practicing mechanics, and this is what you guys should be doing to start to come up with a good sense of how the area is going to flow from one sense to another. So don't think of these as actual physical rooms. Even though I have the word room here, this could just say generator area. Right? So just generator space, like this is where this is going to take place. But what's really nice about this is you're able to really come up with a lot of different versions of this very quickly. So once you can grab some of these together and group them, you're able to just take some of these different setups here, or these different areas that you're planning for. There we go. And I can just start to rearrange these, right? So maybe I want to put the control room comes first. So what would happen if the player goes from the control room into the closet, or from the closet into the control room into the generator area of the level, right? And now I'm starting to mess around with this. Maybe the player goes up the staircase first, and then they get into this room. So you can come up with a lot of different versions, and you can notice that it doesn't matter about the look of it right now. I don't care about the look. They're just small little boxes. You could even put this picture with this, right? So I could put this picture attached to, so this goes with the generator. Let me just back up. Right, I could just group these together. So now when I'm moving it, that image stays with it of what I'm expecting that area to look like in the final form. So a lot of what you're doing here is what you're going to end up doing in your map. That's why we ended up just putting more weight to the map and having this be an experiment for you guys, because it also was a lot of redundancy with the feedback. So if you really take the time to work through this and come up with a lot of different versions, you're going to have a lot of different options when you actually go in and design your map, right? So even if you guys just come in with images and your major setup or your major objective in each one of these, you don't have to get so into detail about the collectibles and all these other things if you don't want to. The more info you put, like I said, the better off you'll be. But even if you just come with like the title of something, the image, and just the overall what the player's doing in that area, and then you start to just move those around, you'll have a lot of different ideas that you can spring from. Another thing to be aware of that I've seen happen a lot for some reason is you'll notice just how my flowchart is represented. It just starts on the left and then ends on the right. That doesn't indicate player pathing at all. You know what I mean? Because in my level, I'm actually climbing up some type of tower. I work my way up here. I go up the next floor, and now the car is on the top floor that I drive out the window. So I'm actually I'm going vertical. But for some reason, I was seeing a lot of, this was my flow chart, and the map would look just like this. The player starts over here, you do your thing, you end up on the ending. So the flow chart does no representation of direction that the player's going, right? It's just the setups to and from each other. Any questions all about that?
Do you want the level that we're designing based on the LDD that we did?
Yeah. So you're going to take your LDD and start to break up, like, what are your major areas? What are the different places the player is going to be interacting? And then break them down into zones, or even, like, I don't want you guys to think of them in terms of rooms, right? Like the player walks through this door and they go into this area. Now they close the door and go into the next one. Don't think it's so separated from each other. It could just be a zone. It could be an area. It could be a room. It could be a building. It could be a portion of the map. It's really just about how the mechanics are going to flow into each other. And let me show you an example from last month that was really well done. It's actually from one of the on-campus students. All right, so here's a flow chart, and he was a very visual designer. He's definitely had the artistic eye for some things. So he's definitely very strong in this type of stuff. And you can tell that each one of these, right, it's just like a small little bubble that he created, right? They all look visually the same: abandoned road and gas station, tunnel entrance, generator room, valve control, fire truck blockade, right? Like each one of these is just a little bubble with some notes and an image. And he could and some icons as well. And you could very easily move these around and manipulate them to figure out the ordering that you want to go in. And then from there, you definitely want to start to, you'll see on here the times. This is just a rough estimate for now, but you want to just, if you think about, rather than trying to design something that's an entire 2 minutes or an entire 4 minutes, you might start to over or underscope yourself. So if you think about them in smaller chunks, like, all right, I'm going to introduce water, I'm going to introduce gas, and the player's going to find some hidden health, and that's going to take about 45 seconds, right? So you think about it in smaller chunks, and then at the end you can add up all those times and see how close you are to everything. So definitely a really good job here, and you can see definitely a lot of notes. He took a lot of time to include a lot of information on the flowchart, and it's just very well connected to each other, right? Like he has these names that are very well labeled, and this is where your question that you asked, Chris, where are you going to be doing a lot of copying over? Once you write it here and you revise it and you do your notes here, then it's a lot of copying from the notes section from your flowchart into your map. So it's not like you're going to be writing it out twice, but you can be planning it here and then adding the visual element of the map later on.
And if you didn't like, or if you're still not settled with something you came up with on the LDD, can you make revisions and show them on here?
Definitely, yeah. Like, don't think just, we turned in the LDD, so we're done. Where it's finalized. This is the only thing we can do for the next 3 months. This is gonna adapt and change going forward. Really, the submission you're getting is I'm just evaluating how well you're coming up with those setups and what your understanding is of the player goal and the featured asset, right? Like that's what I'm evaluating on, but these can still change throughout this class and then next month and then the final month when you come together as a team. So yeah, just expect that to be changed and be comfortable with it. Don't fear that change coming. So yeah, it's a pretty good flow chart here, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. Mine had a lot more going on, and it was a little bit more difficult to read, honestly, than this one. I like his layout of everything because you can just look at these and get a simple understanding, and then read these for more detail. So really well done with the flow chart. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but that experiment is there for you, and definitely something that will improve your workflow. And one of our instructors here, the reason why we have this in the class is this is something that he really likes to use, and he has worked at Activision and has worked for Sony and has a lot of industry experience under his belt, and this is the method he likes to use and what they use in the industry. So that's why I'm showing it to you and why we're going through this process, is because this is actually what level design is when you're out in the industry, coming up with concepts, writing an LDD, rough draft of your map by just blocking out some of your areas in your flow chart here, and then putting it together in a final map, and then handing that off to a 3D artist or a 3D designer, or yourselves just doing it and actually designing and blocking out the level like you'll be doing. So this is very much like what you'll be doing in the industry, so that's why we're going through this process. So that's enough about that actual assignment. Now, what we're going to talk about now is just the common mistakes. Hopefully you guys have seen this document before. Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think we actually went over the class before too.
No, I kind of showed it. We didn't. There's a
We
few.
skimmed it.
Yeah, skimmed it a little. I talked about the featured asset already. I went to this document to give you the explanation of the microscope. But just a few points I want to make on this document, because I always think I could probably spend an entire lecture talking about this whole thing here. But a lot of it is, like you see the idea, like, okay, I get it. Move on. So just some of the ones I see all the time, and definitely ways you can improve your own work, like the big empty areas. when you have even like a hallway where you're having just the player walk through it to get to their next objective, think of something interesting or awesome that the player can do, right? These minor little setups here, and like in this image, a lot going on, a lot of variety for the player to be experiencing, and that can just be in navigation. Thinking about scale, if you haven't brought your map into Unity when you're working on it this week, you're not yet done with it. So you're going to be working on your map this week, and it'll be, you know, your first revisions due next week. During that time, save it at some point and bring it into Unity. Make sure your scale is correct. The reason you'll see on this the template that we give you, so the flowchart and the map template are practically the same. I just have some flowchart icons you guys are already familiar with on it. You're going to see that he modified his. Let me pull this one up. Here it is. So you're going to see on here it says car, do not scale. Also, do not scale the icons themselves. If you keep everything how it is, and you don't, you build to actually saying, okay, my player is this size. This is how big the player is in terms of, you know, width and just volume around. Your whole level should be to an accurate scale. So make sure that you're not manipulating things so much that it's breaking your overall believability of the world. You want to stay away from having those long empty stretches and those long hallways with nothing going on. Let's see. Meaningless repetition and one room, one item to collect. I see those all the time. I met with some of my online students last night in the world building class that I've talked to you guys about, basically the 1 month version of this whole process. And that was just a lot of that. A lot of, here's my hallway and there's 6 rooms and each room has just one little collectible in each one. And, you know, that's just, you're going to be doing the same thing over and over again, just going into a room, getting an item, and just walking through this experience. So try and eliminate that. Have variety to your actual collectibles. In the map template itself, I added a small section for your notes for the collectibles down here. So you can include any notes and important information for your setups and what you need to know or what the player is going to be experiencing here. And then down here, when you insert your collectibles into your maps in certain locations, actually write in what the action is or what the setup is that you want the player to be doing. And then you're going to start to notice you may have a lot of the same, like, you know, player moves rubble and finds it underneath, or they walk up to it and collect it. When you start to actually see it listed out and you have them over and over again, you're going to be able to catch that and be like, wait, how can I add more variety, or how can I improve this overall setup and this list of collectibles? Also here on the actual collectible type, this is a new addition this month, so I'm excited to see how this goes. I tried to actually make different types of collectibles. So here, the breadcrumbs that's one, you put that down if you want to put it in a spot that you want to lead the player and guide them in a certain direction. And that definitely ties right back into guiding the player and not guiding the player, right? We want to do everything in our power to build our level in such a way that the player knows where to go and they understand what it is that they need to accomplish. So use the different icons here, as well as I gave you guys a little bit of space if you want to make in, like, have your own in here, if you want to make your own custom icons. That'll definitely help you out. So then these can just be used for if you want to have hidden cache or any just hidden item, and then in the notes itself you can just describe what that item is. It's really up to you. Like, same thing that goes with the template you've been given in Unity. Your map template here is just that. This is just a starting point. Feel free to add more icons. You'll see here, you know, he added this fire truck and then this water trailer, which is actual featured asset. And it's nothing fancy. It's nothing crazy. It's just a few simple shapes, right? Like just one shape on top of another with a little icon. And Google Draw is really awesome, where you can just find images online and then, you know, save them to your computer and then drag and drop in here, and then you can make icons and different things out of those images. Also, a really nice website. GameIcons.net. Super awesome free website where you can have, you know, every single day or every single week, I think they add new, yeah, March 1st, last update. They add new icons all the time. So really, really good website for if you know, in the future, if this is like the stuff you really like making maps and designing levels, just a really good resource to know about. That's a little tangent, but it's a good thing. Um, yeah, so I mean, most of these icons in the map are pretty self-explanatory. There is a key here and a lock. This doesn't mean that this is an actual key object. Remember, we want to stay away from metaphorical lock and keys, or sorry, literal lock and keys. We want to be using metaphorical lock and keys, right? So like a piece of dynamite, you bring it over to the door, explodes a hole in the wall, now you can get through. That's still opening a door, that's still a key in a sense, but it's not a physical key. Question?
Why?
That's a really good question. So right here it explains why we want to stay away from that. So it's been done over and over and over again in video games. All that's the go-to thing. That's what you see all the time. And they go pick up the key or the key card or the crowbar, and they go and open up the door, right? So we want to do something different, more design, more effort, and more creativity can go into something than just picking up a key and doing something cool with it. Even if it's just colored keys, right? Think about ways to push that even further. Also, within the game of Scraps, it has a realistic setting to it, right? There is some realism in this game, and to make that feasible, your key would have to be very, very small and very realistic, right? If it was a key card, it'd be about the size of a credit card. And it's tough for players to notice that. So then you're going to have to like add flashing particles and add other things to catch the player's attention. And that's all good, but you don't want to make it that difficult. You want to be able to have players find it without them actually thinking you're throwing it at them right in their face. So to make it visible, you'd have to make it large and goofy and a little bit cartoonish style to it, and that doesn't fit within the vision of Scraps. So that's why we try and stay away from that, and we want to push more of metaphorical locking keys, doing certain tasks and affecting certain things that still serve that same purpose.
So if it's say one key equals another door, like Resident Evil, like certain keys open certain doors. Not every locked door this key has access to. Would that be literal lock and key?
Kind of like Doom, where red keys unlock red doors, blue keys unlock blue doors, that kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's sort of like that, because I mean keys. Like whenever you say like it's overused, I mean there's like a lot of things that are pretty like basic in life that almost every video game uses.
Exactly. So why would you want to, if everything is overused and you've recognized it, you notice, everyone should be able to see that it's done over and over. Why would you want to continue to do that yourself? Why wouldn't you want to just come up with something different than?
This is realistic. Like a door wouldn't have like a very special key. Like a key would have access to
There's
a
other ways.
door.
There's other ways to get into or force your way into locked doors. So I mean,
Yeah, but like, I understand that you wouldn't want to do it over and over again for every single level, but like just the avoidance of it altogether just seems like really broad. Like you can't ever just use literal lock and keys, even though that's like the majority of how
Yeah,
the work.
I mean, I'm giving you guys this information because I see it all the time, and trust me, it's not what I like get excited about when I see a key type of setup in one of these levels. When you really push yourself and come up with some awesome setup or an interesting way to even get through a doorway, that's the stuff that really grabs my attention. So I'm just trying to show you guys different ways and different things to look out for to try and set yourself apart from everyone else that's designing some type of key or some type of generator puzzle. Not saying that a key setup couldn't be well done. We're trying to stay away from what we see the easy pitfalls, right? So it's very simple to come up with some type of key puzzle, right? It's the first thing you can think of. Same thing goes with the generator. Like it's even in this map, the flowchart, he has a generator. Like it's very easy to gravitate towards those low-hanging fruit ideas. And it's not to say that they can't be done well, because definitely Doom has done it. Other games, you guys have mentioned a bunch of games that have been super successful that have done this before. But we want to try and do something different, do something innovative, because that's what we're here for. We're here for design. To inspire you a little bit and get you thinking about what to do? Not quite.
Is it bad that we have generators? Because I know I have a generator.
No, it's not. And like I said before, I'm sure there's going to be a few. I'm sure there's a bunch this month, and that's okay. It can definitely be done well. It makes sense in the fitting of scraps. There's something there. But it's how you execute it. What is it? If you're just going to walk up to it and press a button, now it turns on and the lights turn on, there could be more there. There could be a lot more.
So like my idea for the generators is there's parts broken or something's jamming the generators and you need to like fix them to get something to happen.
Yeah, and now when you say you're gonna fix, you're gonna fix it, it's what is that actual action of fixing it? Now, do I need to go find some item somewhere in the level, or is it just like some type of interaction? So that's all the stuff that you can start to define in your level design document as well as in your flowchart. So yeah, it's just that's the person that came up with scraps. He's actually going to be your instructor for Project and Portfolio 3, and myself and DJ, and his name's Dax, Mr. Dax Gazway. He's going to be around a lot, and you can ask him that same question about why no key and locks, and really like that's the biggest thing is just to force you guys, right? Like just like with that John Cleese video, force you guys to be creative. We tried to eliminate all those things that you guys are going to jump to right away. I'm almost tempted to say in like the creative vision, no generators, but I know it can still be done well, and it's not that far-fetched of a feasible thing. So it's really just we want to force you guys into be doing something more and something that you feel is your own, and something you can claim as something you worked on and created. And actually, for a long time in level design, the class you'll be coming up next month, they would basically teach you how to like, basically they would show you how to make a key and pick it up, and it would like open up a door. So then the students would get to world building, and they'd be like, okay, now you learn how to do that. You can't do that. You have to do something different. So and that was part of a lesson to show you that basically all game objects are just game objects, whether it's a key or a piece of dynamite or you're pulling a switch. It's all the same, right? It's just a game object. It's affecting something else. Another one, and I hope I don't butcher this. Been practicing this over the weekend. So Dark Souls, right? You guys played Dark Souls before? Any fans in here really enjoy that type of gameplay? Definitely not me. I played it a little bit. Definitely very difficult. That's one way to say it. And what's really, really good analogy for this, anyone also seen Austin Powers?
Yeah.
Yeah? So the part, I'm pretty sure it's the first movie, when Dr. Evil he finally captures Austin Powers, and he has him, and he basically wants to go tie him up, and they do the whole thing with the sharks, with the lasers, and tie him up and try and make it real dramatic. And then Scott comes in, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? Why don't you just shoot him in the head, right? So for the longest time, you guys have been tricked this whole time when you've been playing video games. Designers are thinking like Dr. Evil, and you guys are Austin Powers. They're gonna make it in a way where you think you're in danger, you think you're on the edge of dying or failing, but you're gonna make it through, right? So it's designing it in a way where it's very intense and dramatic, and there's like a climax to this action, but in the end, he gets away, right? So hopefully I didn't spoil anything for you, but designers and developers, they're thinking like Dr. Evil. They know you're gonna get away, you're gonna beat that final boss, but they're making that experience awesome. So if you're still in this mindset of thinking like Scott, where you just want to kill the player, like having these instant deaths and having a super difficult level that only you can play because you've played through the level 100 times and you designed it, it's a very small audience, right? But try and think of something that's going to make it an enjoyable experience for anyone that sits down to play through. I think that's really all I got in terms of these. Most of these are pretty straightforward. Missing details. Yeah, that's more for actually building levels. So some of these vary, right? Like some of these are more important to be thinking about when you're before you even start to build out your map. Also, like walking through doors or walking through halls, opening doors. See that a lot. Like that's like opening a door is not actually a mechanic. It's just part of what's going on in the game. So some of these too, you'll read through this at different stages in your process and be able to catch yourself making some of these mistakes, as well as prevent some of them from happening. All right, so if you guys have any questions about any of these during the month, or you even maybe you recognize one where you're like, hey, I feel like I keep making the same mistake, or I'm looking at I'm looking at other people's work and I keep seeing this, let me know, and maybe that's something that we could add to here, because this has always been something that we've just started to build on and gather as we've seen people go through this class and go through the level design courses, try and put together just a general, watch out for these pitfalls. So anything that you may offer to this, let me know.
I was curious, when do we have to have our featured asset?
Like
the one I want.
Like in Unity completely done, or?
Yeah, like when would you have to have it, like start making it? Like would you have to,
Probably next month. I don't know if they grade, I think they do grade you. A lot of what they grade you on is like your setups and your block out of your level. I can actually find out tomorrow, or I'll try and find out. I'll try and find out between our break, between 11 and 1, what if they grade you on that. But I think their rubric has something to do with the featured asset. But I mean, fully featured, complete, and like done, it wouldn't be until Project Portfolio 3, which will be May. Kyle?
Do you know when we find out what our groups are going to be?
You'll find that at all the beginning of basically day 1 of Project Portfolio 3. You'll forming groups and merging and like putting all your maps together.
Okay, I was wondering because we're going to want to make sure that we're at least like somewhat.
Yeah, your maps are definitely gonna change as well. But in level design, you're still gonna be working individually, like blocking out your level, and working on it there. So it looks like I failed you guys because according to Perforce, let's see if anything's changed. Not many of you, at least you guys on campus, have been submitting your work to Perforce. Like you've been submitting assignments, everyone's got their assignments in the right spot, but in the working folder, if I just go through here, come on, history. Oh, there's a good one. Oh, Tyler had some submissions. Jude hasn't done much. So really just, I'm not grading you guys on this. I'm not trying to like call anybody out. It seems like, this is something I'm trying to improve and like forcing you guys to be checking in your work. But like you definitely want to be like here, these submissions and the dates. You want to be submitting your work like every time you're working on it. So it's good to see, some of you guys doing that. And when we go through like the experiments, I kind of reiterate that more like, all right, now go back to Perforce and submit your work. This is mostly right now just for you guys getting comfortable. Like it's one thing to add files, like just like these shortcuts and the EXEs to Perforce, but I want you guys to get comfortable actually modifying a project and submitting that project to Perforce and getting comfortable with that. Chris?
I tried doing the whole reconcile offline work with Unity, went out into the folder, and it kept having errors. That's why it's like I was going to ask you.
Okay, you're having an issue doing it? All right, yeah, I can definitely take a look at that. So yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I know that there was a lot with week 1 with everything, like learning Perforce and as well as doing the brainstorming and the visuals and setting, and there's a lot of assignments week 1. The class is a little bit front loaded in the first week just because you kind of have to get up to speed with what we're going to be working on, and then the rest of the month now you're just working on your assignments. So just be diligent about this and get the practice in now, because I definitely really know this stuff well and want you guys to feel comfortable working with Perforce and Unity. So, continue to even just make small little changes or like experiment with something and then submit that to Perforce. Do you have another question?
No.
No? Okay. Yeah, it was just something I had like checked. I checked like last night or yesterday afternoon, and it just looked like there wasn't very many like actively submitting to Perforce. There's a few, and that's good. So definitely keep that up, and just keep getting practice with that. And if anyone has any idea and how I could evaluate that easily, that would be something I'd be interested in considering. Any feedback you guys have for the course is very much appreciated.
It's a party at the end of the month if we all like put stuff in routine.
That's a possibility. All right. So real quick, I'm just gonna talk about the map. So this is the final. So the map assignment, pretty straightforward in terms of what you need to be doing. Obviously, you're working on your map that you've based off of your level design document and your flowchart. Definitely take the notes portion of it seriously. Like that is a lot of valuable information. You want to get your map to a point where you could hand it off to anyone else in this room or any other designer, and they'd be able to build it exactly how you want to, how you're envisioning it, how you would want it to turn out. So it's really important you put a lot of information in the notes as well as the map itself. Reference images, don't skimp on those. At least like one image per like room or space in your area, as well as your collectibles, right? So right now there's just a minimum of 15. You can have more if you'd like, but that doesn't mean you want to just throw 50 or 100 collectibles all throughout the level and just make it so the pacing is broken. You really want to use these in interesting ways. And be able to reward them as for player actions, right? Really balance out how you're giving them to the player. Have some that are breadcrumbs, have some that are hidden, have some that are based on actual player progression, right? Having a wide variety of them is what's going to make it feel fun and exciting to get these actual items. Because I know that collecting items isn't for everybody in games, and a lot of it comes down to the actual design, in my opinion. If it's very well designed and there's a reward to actually getting these items, then it's going to be something that players are going to want to actively do. So it's just a good practice here to try and do something that may not be for everyone, but definitely can be enjoyable. Your question?
If we have, say, a collectible item that modifies the properties of the graphical, is that going to be bad?
You have a collectible that modifies the Gravno?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's fine.
one of the two major areas that we were supposed to do, the second one, or actually no, the first one, is like you pick up a little like accessory pack, you put it in the
Yeah.
graphical, and now you have some extra things at the graphical.
That's fine. As long as you feel capable, you know how to modify that, or you know how to make changes to it, totally okay with that. It's fine. I have a question from an online student. Richard says, what does it mean 5 collectibles from the flowchart and then 10 in different, 10 additional locations? This little snippet was because in the flowchart, I wanted you to plan out 5 that were going to be like integral to the player's progression, or like your major ones. Like if you wanted to showcase 5 of your best 15, showcase them in your flowchart, and then in your map you want to come up with 10 additional ones, so you have a total of at least 15. So that's why it's saying use 5 from your flowchart, because those should be like your top ones that if players only got 5, you'd want them to get these 5. So maybe they're tied to progression, maybe they're just the coolest ones, like the most interesting. But your best 5 you can put in your flowchart. All right, so let me just take a look at a sample map, because I've probably seen this a few times already. So this was actually also online, or from last month from an on-campus student. Very well done map. This was his final version. He was in a really good spot starting with his rough, but then there was definitely still a lot of things he changed and improved to definitely make this better. His notes, while he definitely has a lot, he could have maybe broken it up in an easier, more legible way to look at all this. Before, do I still have it open? Yeah, I do.
You could just
That's
have
the
like a
original.
link to another document where it just has that notes side, right?
I mean, you want to have it. What I was going to say is it's really nice with here how this student did it. He has these multiple different areas where the notes are broken up into smaller sections, right? So this is much easier to read the flow chart and then come to the notes and read it, right? But with over here, you want to be able to read the map and then come over here, like, you know, like maybe next to these images, have little blurbs of notes. So still could be improved, right? We could sit here and find areas this could be improved. But definitely a very, very strong map. He had a really good sense of scale and what he wanted to accomplish and everything like that. So let me zoom in a bit. So you can very well tell, like everything is very detailed. Like the overall player path is very well laid out. He's got these optional like player paths with the white arrows. You'll notice here. He still has a few sections here with like just I definitely mentioned, you know, be careful of these little stretches where the player is just walking forward. You want to have some type of interaction or something going on. Even here would be like a good spot for a voiceover or some type of interaction, so engaging with the player while they're traversing this. So definitely, you know, a few spots like this that you definitely want to be conscious of. And he was aware about that. He knew that just going forward, these are things that you can plan and adapt for when you're actually continuing the design. Another thing I like that he really did was he took these icons and actually just changed the color values of them. So now he actually has, you know, green barrier with green solution, like blue barrier with blue solution, purple with purple. So it was it makes the the map much easier to read rather than having multiple red ones throughout the whole map. So that was just a nice little change he made. Probably wasn't, he did it right in Google Draw. Um, he has these little striped zones for like where the sandstorm is, and the whole concept was you're able to manipulate these certain items to these valves over here. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, these valves will shut down this sandstorm. So here he's introducing it to the player. Then later on, he has to, you know, avoid this one. Goes all the way around, hits it here, and then his final area where he's up here with this generator area up here in this like overlook room, and then the player ends up, you know, shutting it down and then breaking through the glass to end back up by this crane. So this was an idea that he had toyed with, and he made a few adjustments to his rough map before um, the final submission, but I should have his rough so you guys can see like where his first submission was at. Yeah. So this is where his first submission was. He actually, his first design, this room was over here, but he changed it before the first submission. So you can tell that he was on the right track and had a good start, but then really, you know, added a lot of detail in that final version. So a lot of just, you know, extra polish and more information. So he was already in a really good spot for the rough version. And for the final, he definitely really, you know, added a lot more polish to it. So if you the only other requirement besides the 15 collectibles is you guys have to have terrain in your map to some capacity. So the only reason for that is so when you get to level design, you have something in your map to actually work with terrain, and then they can evaluate you on knowing that tool. So it could be something the player walks on. It could be just the player looks out the window and they see some mountains or some type of terrain. That's totally acceptable, right? It could be whatever you want. It's just there has to be terrain in your map in some type. Do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, so the collectibles, the 15 collectibles have to be unique.
You mean like the actual item itself?
Like their function. Okay, so I'll
Um,
use a generator for example. Like say one's missing a bit of wire that you need to put in, and then one's missing like a spark plug or something. Those two wouldn't be unique collectibles because they both serve the same function to get the generators to start.
I mean that's okay, but it's about how you get those items. If the wire is just sitting on a desk next to the other item, right? They're just sitting next to each other. I mean, there's no variety in the actual action to obtain that. That's what I care about is what is the setup that the player has to do? What's the task they have to complete in order to get that item, right? That's the variety. You could have 15 pieces of wire, but if each wire is, you know, some interesting or unique setup, or even there's like 6 different ones, right? You can still have 1 or 2 that's the same. That's okay. But you don't want to just have like, all right, here's 15 wires and each one of them's under a crate. So you move each crate and you find a wire. That's it. That's what I want you to avoid. Question?
So if you were to say like scavenge 5 of the same collectible throughout various buildings, as long as when you obtain it, you've gone through some level of ordeal that varies, that would be fine for the collectibles?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's some highs and lows you want to hit, right? During slower during slower parts of gameplay where maybe you're trying to develop story, or there's a cutscene or a voiceover or something like that. Maybe you just have like an item or two like on the desk. That's okay. Like having one is all right. Maybe you want to put it like right along the player's path, so you say like, okay, this item you just got, you can collect this. Like you're just making that association. That's all right. But you don't want to just repeat that throughout the whole level. You want there to be some variance and some variety. Any other questions about that stuff? So that's really just the 2 major things. Also, a transition point is also just something you need to be cognizant of. So remember that you're connecting your areas to another spot. So it's probably not smart to have your player finish be like in the middle of your map somewhere, because now how is the player going to get from that spot to, unless you have some plan, some way to move them, but there's no teleporting, and we're not like loading another scene. It's just supposed to load in all seamlessly in one nice transition. You want to plan for how you can attach your level to another. So just think about that and how you're going about, connecting your area. So I can give you I've showed you guys this map a little bit already, but I can show you this one again, and we can talk about this team's process. Another just really, really good example of this team had a really good understanding of what they wanted to do together. So this is 3 different students. This is Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3. So if you're looking at this and thinking, oh my God, I have to do all of that, don't freak out. You just have to do one of these areas is what you're responsible for. But up here in the top area, definitely really, really well done. And I can tell this student, this guy, he borrowed a lot from this map. I can just tell looking at the style of it that he definitely went above and beyond, and he took this and he ran with it. And I could tell that his final turned out pretty good and has a lot of good qualities to it. And I'm excited to see how this turns out in the next few months. A few small little details here is he's actually pay attention to. He doesn't just have this is a cube for this room, or this is like a rectangle for this room, so I'm going to make a rectangle. He actually has these wall pieces laid out here, and how he's going to build them. You can also see these doors are also signified by the shape of them. Also these little panes of glass, right? So really is a lot of detail in his map that really puts together the whole sense of what the player is going to be doing. And hey, look, there's a crowbar, right? So still, it's very common to see. He also, I think he had a generator. No, in the one of the other areas has a generator. But crowbar, fire hydrant, or fire extinguisher, I see that a lot to put out fires. They also had this camera system where if the player was detected by the camera, that would turn the turret on. So really cool interaction to where if you stayed out of the way of the camera, you could be right in front of the turret as long as you were avoiding the camera detection. So he did a really, really good job. Again, just making your own custom shapes and your custom icons really goes a long way. You guys seen the Prima strategy guides? You guys ever seen those? Yeah, for some, maybe you guys have seen them in GameStop, or you bought one for a game that you couldn't get past. In there, a lot of them have actual layouts of the level, right? And they look like a map just like this. So shoot for that quality, that amount of detail, that amount of information in your map. Because what you're going to end up doing is you're able to use your map that you create as a mini map inside of Unity. So the more information, the more detail you build out with your map, the easier it's going to be for you to actually construct this inside of Unity. So Again, they had a plan from the beginning, so they knew that they all wanted to be, stacked on top of each other like this. That'd be a little bit more difficult for you guys, but still not out of the realm of possibility. You could have these floors that you could kind of go up and down with and manipulate, but it would all end up with what the shape ended up being, right? So you're going to have to adapt going forward. But really, what to take away from this is he took the template and really improved it a lot and made a lot of nice changes to it, right? Like these little custom pill collectibles. Even just like these custom icons, and this is like a satellite dish, and this was like part of, what the player's objective was to activate these satellites. So, a lot of information and detail went into this, and this is the quality that I'm looking for and what I'm going to be expecting from you guys, because you have a lot more time to develop this and design something awesome. So, really shoot for this quality. And if you guys want any other examples, I can put together, I could put together like a Google sheet of a bunch of different maps of different ranging qualities. But like this is like top quality, what we're expecting, really professional level work. All right, I think that's about it. The perforce test is coming up. Do you guys have any questions at all about perforce? Is there any concepts that you guys feel you're not familiar with? Any questions you want to ask now? Kyle?
I'm still just a little bit fuzzy on what the reconcile offline work does.
Okay, so Kyle doesn't know what reconciling offline work does. Anybody know what does reconciling offline work actually do? Dalton?
It takes whenever you select the folder or the specific document, and then it checks your computer against any more recent versions of it that you have yet to upload to Perforce. Then it gives you a list of all the changes. You can then select which changes to update. Then by clicking accept, it changes everything that you've selected that it detected.
All right, that was a very, very good explanation, right? So it's comparing your workspace to what's on the depot and the folder that you select. It's going to compare for any changes. It's going to check out files that were modified. It's going to mark files for add that were new and mark files for delete that are no longer there. And then when you hit reconcile, it's going to add those to a change list. It's the one thing you didn't quite say, but I knew you know what it does. So it's going to add those to a change list, and then you can submit your change list from there.
Okay. That doesn't work for me. I have to do it manually. Everything manually. I have to do it. I have to open up two file explorers, drag it from my computer into the workspace. And
Okay.
then I have to reconcile from the depot. Because whenever I try and reconcile my workspace, it doesn't work for me.
You're trying to reconcile from, you're saying if you reconcile from the workspace tab?
Yeah. Like if I try and reconcile a folder that I know has changed, it doesn't.
It just doesn't detect anything, but if you do it from here, it does?
Yeah.
That's a weird issue. I'll take a look at that in lab and see if it's throwing up an error or just kind of timing out. So everyone know the difference between the depot and the workspace? What is the workspace?
Location on your computer.
Yep, the workspace is just a location or folder structure on your computer. And the depot is shared amongst everybody. Let's see, there's another, so if I have added if I've added a file to a change list and I made a mistake and I don't want to, so let's see, maybe this test file. Yeah, so I've checked out this file in this change list, but I made a mistake and I didn't want to do that. Or maybe I accidentally marked everybody's work for delete. How do I fix that? Yep, so you just right click on the change list and revert files. And that's just going to undo and back out anything that was marked for add or delete or checked out. It's going to undo that and back everything out of that list. If I have work on my machine and it's working for me, but everyone else on my team, it's not working. My work's not showing up. What might be the problem?
You didn't Submit the files to the depot.
Yep, my files may not be properly added to the depot. So that's really, I don't know, making sure you understand reconciling offline work. You should be in a good spot. You'll be pretty strong on the test. So definitely make sure that you give yourself some time to at least make a change or like mess around with Perforce for a little bit before you take the test. Feel comfortable with it, at least modifying a file. I really like to encourage you guys to practice before you take the test, right? The other instructor, Mr. Gasway, he feels that it's better to give you guys the test before you ever even see Perforce. And in my opinion, I think it'd be better if you guys get to break it, maybe have some struggles, figure it out, and now you finally realize what you're doing, and now you can take the test and see that you have a good understanding of it. So also, while you're taking the test, feel free to have Perforce open, and just if it's asking you something that you don't know, try and actually do it in Perforce and see what the result is, because that'll definitely help you out. All right, go ahead and here, can we just.
All right, cool. I just did a brain flush. I'm gonna need to.
Well, go ahead and give us a pitch of what you're going to be doing in your level and why it's going to be awesome.
All right. So one of the big things that I want to do with my level is make it so that one of the introductory parts for it, you actually have to go into an area and get an accessory for the grapnel. So what this is going to be is you walk into this tunnel, you've got to open this door so you can progress. But on your way in, you have to go into a pool of water and grab part of the grapnel, and then you're going to attach it to your grapnel, and it's going to give you some extra functionality that will come in handy for later parts of the level. And then there are a few ways that the game can progress from there. I've got one idea where there are some turrets behind a barrier, and they're going to start shooting at you really quickly. But one of the added functions of the grapnel is you can kind of pull things closer to you, and there's going to be a piece of weak cement near the turret, and then you can use the grapnel to pull that down, and actually it'll fall on the turrets and break them. So you go through that, and then one of the other big areas is going to be a dam with some debris on a bridge, and you need to go through the control room of the dam. And the picture's not working?
I don't think so.
Oh, there are the pictures. All right, so you're going to go through the control room of the dam, and everything's kind of powered off so that button panel is not going to be interactive, and you need to go through and find a couple of generators. There's going to be some things that are broken with generators, like some of them are going to be jammed, some of them are going to be missing parts, and you need to fix them and make sure they work. And in order to do that, you're going to be going through this fairly large dam complex where you use different functions of the grapnel for each different part of the generator that you need to go to. Like one area, there's not going to be much of a floor, so you're going to need to kind of grapple onto pipes that are hanging from the ceiling, and then swing from object to object, and then you'll get the part of the generator, and then you can go back. Then one area you're going to need to say there'll be kind of more of like a vertical and deep maze where you need to pull down parts of the ceiling and then hoist yourself up using the grapnel, and then there will have been a turret further in the maze, and then you just come down on top of them and destroy the turret that way instead of trying to sneak around them. You'll actually be able to kind of destroy things that way. Huh?
Instead of sneaking around them, you would sneak around them.
Yes, in a better way, more fancy-like. And then once you've actually turned on all the generators, you'll go back to the control panel. There'll be a computer terminal that you can interact with.
Yeah, what are your two major mechanics here?
One of the major mechanics is going to be the addition of the extra parts for the grapnel, I think then actually what I did was I described the two major areas of the level, like having to turn on the power generators. And then another idea that I've had is like having two buildings that are really close to each other, and you need to like use the grapple and like swing up to get over a barrier, and also make it so like if you point the grapnel down when you're falling from a building, it will slow you down, so you could potentially jump from a very high area and use the grapnel to not die.
Well, it definitely sounds like you have a lot of different ideas here, and it's definitely good to have a lot of different things going on, because then you're able to hone in on something. So I like the idea of making uh, the upgrades and the modifications to the grapnel. Just be careful about how many different ones you're trying to accomplish. That's just the one thing I want you to think about. Like, rather than trying to do like four, a bunch of different ways that the player can use the grapnel, maybe try and do one or two, like what we have here in the major mechanics, and then a variety of different ways to do them. And like, so it's like with the grappling hook type of functionality with it, it's probably possible, but you have to be comfortable in doing something like that, right? Because if you're going to design your level, and most of your level is designed around this type of traversal, and now you can't get that traversal to work, now you're going to have to completely, change your level on the fly, or, have a short amount of time to redesign something. So I think it's definitely, there's some feasible element. I like the idea of like, you can like grab onto something and then like fling yourself towards it. I think there's something there, but it's going to be something you're going to want to prototype and test before you actually commit to something that big.
Okay.
But keep going. What do you have? So overall, like, what are your minor setups, and what are you planning to do with some of this stuff on a smaller scale?
A lot of the minor setups are basically just describing some things about these like individual little steps of the puzzles, like how I want to have the player interact with the control panel, like have it be a trigger-based volume, things like that. I want to have it so like the player will go through, maybe try to get across an area, but there will be some debris in the way, so they'll have to use their repulsion from the grapnel and blow that all up.
There's talk to us.
See what else should I talk about? Also, like having radiation zones where if you go to a certain area, they're like radiation barrels, and you start kind of losing health if you go too close to those. Would be kind of a fun way to make use of the damage volume we've got in the playground assignment, the project template. A lot of it really is just with the being able to pull out and spark apart parts of the concrete and try to get around the level that way.
So I think you're definitely moving in the right direction with the player goal, the featured asset, and your major like mechanics that you have planned here. With your minor setups, I see a little bit of an issue that you have a lot of things that are just describing what's happening, but not actually telling us what the actual action is. So, areas in the mazes where you can break parts of the walls, that tells me a little bit of what the action is, and get a side view on a turret. You'll be blocked off beyond their intended routes, so players can't skip large section of the maze. So you're just kind of explaining like how the level is going to be laid out almost, and giving me a sense of what it's going to look like. But I care more about the actual action. And one thing to remember here is this is where you can list out your different setups to tell us what your collectibles are, and what the player action is gonna be to grab those collectibles, or what the setup is for each one of those. So I think you're sprinkled in. You have a few in here that are actually on the right direction, but a few as well are a little bit more of just an explanation of, like, say, the world, or like here, a button on the dam control panel will be based on trigger volume. I don't really care at this point. I don't care about how it's going to work. I just care about what am I going to be experiencing as a player. So a player has no idea what a trigger volume is, right? Most players don't really think about games on that level. And then you're telling them if they press E, the power turns on. But give me more of an action to that statement. But overall, I think you're definitely moving in the right direction, and it's better to be a little bit overscoped than underscoped, right? Because now you have a lot of these different ideas, so you can hone some down and focus on a few of them very, very well, rather than not have enough ideas to pull from. So definitely moving in the right direction. Just be cautious of what you're trying to tackle, and if you have a plan for what you want to do and you know how to do some of the things you're talking about, or maybe you have already, you've experimented with it, then I think more power to you. But just remember that this is something you guys are designing for yourselves. So don't bite off more than you can chew, or don't sell yourself short. If you think you have the skills to do something awesome, then do something awesome. But very well done. Thank you, Kyle.
Cool.
Anybody else want to kind of pitch their level to everyone? Anyone else want to have any feedback for Kyle as well? If anyone wants to say something, I mean, please be professional about it. And I know it's not an easy thing to do, is present your work that you've been, focusing on for so long. So if anyone has any feedback for Kyle, definitely, open to that. Anybody? Jude?
I was gonna say the biggest issue right now would it be like, at this point with all the upgrades, his level would have to go